Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. My name is Stacey Flowers, and I am a student of Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. I'm on a journey to become 100% debt free. My current debt is $160,000. I'm on baby step number 2 to repay all of my debts. I work for myself part time, and my income is about $5K a month. In this video, I'm going to be going over my budget with me live for the month of April. So if you are interested in that, please keep watching. And just as I start talking, I am getting hot. So give me 2 seconds. I'm going to open up a window. Give me just a second. I already tell it's gonna be hot in here. Sorry about that. Good morning, good morning. So excited to see you all. A disclaimer that I like to give to people is that when you see me doing this budget, I just want to remind you guys that I am a student, which means that while I will be doing my budget live, I am open to you guys correcting and letting me know if you see anything that are mistakes or anything like that that I'm making. Although I've been doing this for a little over 2 years now, I'm still very much a student of Dave Ramsey's program. So I love your input. I think that there is a lot going on, so this may be a little bit of a longer video as well as the Q&A video that follows, but I just want to make sure that I get to all of your questions, comments, concerns, etc. The budget forms that I'm going to be using, I'll be using the Quickstart Budget. I will also be using the monthly cash flow form, which is 2 pages, and then I will be using the allocated spending, which is 4 pages, and I will be completing them all. It typically takes somewhere around like 60 to 90 minutes to be able to complete them all. And then following me doing the budget, I will pop off and then pop back on for a in-depth for a Q&A to be able to answer all you guys' questions. So as we are moving into this budget, I think important goings on is that we are on a worldwide global pause, and as a result of the world needing to pause, and specifically the Chicago area needing to pause, that will impact my budget. I've been getting a lot of questions about how I intend to shift and adjust and adapt to this, and I will tell you that it doesn't, when I was reviewing things before I came on, for me it's not impacting it significantly, but I'll explain a little bit. So you guys know that I have my own company, and I make a living through talking, and that's primarily through 3 ways: through speaking, coaching, and influencing. And because my income is diversified, while it is impacted by this worldwide global pause, it isn't so negatively impacted because I do have income coming in multiple ways. And so the area of my revenue that's been impacted the most is probably, obviously you guys would be able to pick up on this, is speaking, because we're no longer able to gather in spaces, and so many of my speaking engagements have been rescheduled. But because I am a full-blown business person, when I do a speaking contract, in my speaking contract, any of my speaking clients, in order for me to hold the date that they're intending for me to speak, they do pay a 50% deposit. So my company at any given period of time always has capital in it, because at the minimum for one of my revenue streams, I have 50% of whatever that speaking fee is inside of my company functioning as capital. That was a decision that I made well before we were in this situation, just good business sense, because it didn't make sense for me to say that I would be available for 3 days, or I would be available for a day or whatever at some future time period, without there being some way for me to be able to honor what potentially could come up in my own organization. And so that's when I came up with the 50% deposit. Thankfully, I have incredible speaking clients, and our contracts are really beautifully written. And so as it is right now, there's not anyone who's like, oh, well, I want my deposit back. We're in a worldwide global pause. It's more like, well, as a result of you having this deposit, as soon as we're clear on when we can gather again, you will get first priority for rescheduling those dates. So I'm super, super excited, or not excited, I'm super, super grateful that I have speaking clients like that, but that also, when I tell you guys that I'm an entrepreneur and I have a real business, like, I can't emphasize enough that a part of being an entrepreneur and a part of having a real business is managing the risk of business. And even if we weren't experiencing a worldwide global pause, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, it is my responsibility to say to myself, okay, what is the best way for me to keep capital and cash flow in my company, but also strategically decide what clients and things like that I'm going to take on. It is my responsibility to think through those things. And thankfully, because I have been budgeting for 27 months, I definitely thought through that. So while speaking gigs, I'm not booking anything new. I do have other gigs that are on the calendar and a little bit of capital that's in my company as a result of that. On the influencing side, because so many people are at home, influencing income is up for me, which makes sense. And then on the coaching side, I had made a decision to close my coaching program in February. And so coaching income isn't coming in, but I'm working on my coaching programs now. And so when those launch, that will be additional revenue as well. So I say all that to say that the worldwide global pause is having an impact, but it's not as significant because of the way that I've organized my business. And I think generally just how I am set up as an entrepreneur, like, this is par for the course. Like, entrepreneurship is managing risk. This risk is larger than some of the other risks that I've had to manage, but if I'm going to be an entrepreneur, it is actually my job to manage for these things. And then my lifestyle hasn't changed dramatically because I'm an entrepreneur, so I do a lot of stuff at home anyway. So there's that in terms of it impacting my revenue. What I have decided to do, and you guys will know in my last budget report card, and I think my last budget, I was just like, oh, I'm going to double my income. I'm in a position to be able to do that, but because we are experiencing this worldwide global pause, I'm going to keep my income at $5K a month. Now, if I decide to pay myself $5K a month for the remainder of the year, if I decide to pay myself $5K a month for the remainder of the year, that means my income for 2020 will be $60,000, which, if you're doing the math, that also means that I wouldn't be able to become debt-free. That is if I keep my income at $5K a month. The only way for me to be able to become debt-free or take a significant amount off my debt is if I'm able to increase my income beyond that amount. However, we are experiencing a worldwide global pause, and I need to be wise about what I'm doing with my money, and I rather enjoy a $60K salary working part-time than to overextend myself and try to be aggressive in this season with respect to getting rid of my debt, and then find myself in a situation where in November or December or October, I don't have any cash flow. That is not wise. That is not something that I'm going to do. So that's probably the biggest thing, is that rather than increasing my income at this time, I'm going to maintain a salary of $5K net a month, which means I am netting a $60,000 salary, which automatically shapes what potentially I will be able to pay off this year and what that will look like, and potentially us going into another year or whatever in terms of this debt-free journey. I have made peace with that. I'm not looking at that as like a horrible thing. I'm looking at that as like, this is the way that you respond when something like this shows up. So there's that. I'm not increasing. And then the last thing in terms of how this is impacting is that all of my additional income, I'm going to reallocate for my son and myself, my family, my son. And when I say my family, I mean me and my son and his father. I'm going to reallocate for our emotional, mental, and psychological well-being. So what that means is that, and you guys will see this when I get on the budget forms, what that means is the extra couple or so $100 that I would normally put towards my student loans, I'm no longer doing that. I'm going to pay the minimum on my student loans, and then any additional money will be money that will be reallocated for psychological, emotional, and mental health and well-being. And so my son is a senior this year, and he is not going to get his senior rites of passages, right? Like he's not getting prom, he's not getting graduation, he's not getting a lot of experiences. And right now he probably hasn't processed that because so much is still unfolding. But there's going to be some processing that he goes through, right? Like him and his peers and all that other stuff. And I get that this is a first world problem, whatever. The point of the matter is I want you to imagine not having your senior year, right? He's not going to have that. And so when that begins to show up for him, he's going to have an emotional response. He's going to have a psychological, mental, whatever. He's going to have some sort of coping, processing response. And I want to be in a financial position to be able to help him to manage that. And that could be him going to therapy. That could be him when we're finally able to come out of it, like he wants to go to some, camp with his friends where they can be together. I don't know what is going to be his psychological, mental, and emotional processing, but I do know that when you think that you're going to, like in America, like we pump up the idea of being a senior, we pump up the idea of this transition, we pump up all that stuff, and he's not going to have that experience, and there's going to be a response to that. And so I want to financially prepare myself for the response to that. I also understand that naturally my son eats a whole horse every single day, even when he's not going through this worldwide global pause. But now that we're going through the worldwide global pause, my son is eating like 3 horses a day. And so because he's eating so much, likely some of it might be emotional eating, more of it's probably like boredom, but he's eating a lot more and he's experiencing more meals at home. I am adjusting my budget to accommodate for that. So that's another thing where all of my additional extra money will be reallocated for his mental, emotional, and psychological well-being, because I don't want my son to be stuck in the house and the cabinets look bare, in addition to him not being, that's psychologically, that's a trip, that's intense for me. Like I grew up when I grew up, there were times when we didn't have anything in the cabinets, and there were times when, all we had was pantry food, and pantry food looks very different, or not pantry as in my pantry, but I'm saying like pantry from like a shelter pantry where they like bring you a box to your house, like that is a very intense, and for me, it was a very traumatizing experience, and I do not want my son to experience psychological trauma around food. And lack thereof. And so a lot of these resources will be reallocated to making sure that he has all of his meals in the house visually as well as like available to him, which is a little bit different than normally. I don't concern myself with his groceries in the sense that, his dad just goes to the grocery store. But this is, for example, something that I'm going to be managing for, because stuff like that is traumatizing to children. Also like kiddo can't go outside, and if he does go outside, like he's walking around the block, but he has to stay home, like stuff like that, like really, really matters. And so when I say that this money is being set aside for all of that, if my son calls me and he's just like, hey mom, I want to download Fortnite or something like that, that is not something normally that I would give to my child outside of my budget. But because he can't go outside, he might be tired of playing Madden, and I'm not saying that this is my recommendation that you do this. What I'm saying is that I am considering my child and where my child is in his life. And I am considering my budget and my finances as it relates to helping him to mentally, emotionally, and psychologically adjust to this. Do I want him playing video games all day? No. But do I want a $25 video game to be the reason why he sort of moves into a space of panic when I have additional resources that I could potentially put towards that? Absolutely not. Do I understand that this money, that $25 could be spent towards paying off my debt, which would ultimately long-term set him up to be I get that. But hear me when I say this, my personal belief is that when there is a worldwide global pause, you are supposed to adapt. This is not the time when you put your stick in the mud and you're like, no matter what. It's like, no, the point of doing a budget is so that when something shows up, I can think through how I want to respond. And I am not emotionally like, oh, my poor child. No, I am logically thinking through what it would be like to be a senior in high school who cannot leave my house, who is an only child. And, I'm thinking through what he might be experiencing and the what is it called, the effect that that's going to be having. Even you guys know, like, the last budget, I was like, yeah, I want to go home. Like, I didn't do that, right? So there are things. So when you guys are, you'll see when I do the budget that there's going to be that additional, what you could definitely put on your debt. It's definitely just going to be set aside to manage for those other things that I wouldn't normally do. But because we are in this time, I am going to be a lot more generous with myself and my child, so that way we can get through this experience with as much mental and emotional and psychological health as possible. That is what is paramount to me, his mental, emotional, and psychological health. I do not care about anything else but my child's mental, emotional, and psychological health. And I am being very mindful of how I'm managing that. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to indulge him, but it certainly means that I'm not going to deprive him because I'm on this particular journey. And I'm hoping that makes sense. Those are going to be the most significant changes that you guys see in regards. And, you know, when we do the Q&A, we can talk about it. We can talk about your specific situation with your kiddos, because I get that everybody's having to adjust and adapt. And my biggest adjustments is in the food category, and then also in the category of just, here's some additional money. You know, will he start therapy? I don't know. But if he does, I want to be prepared for that. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I put. Okay, so there's nothing else that I put here. I'm going to throw you guys over my shoulders, and we're going to get started with the budget. And then after we do the budget, again, I'll pop off, pop back on, and that's when we're really going to engage in a very dynamic conversation about all of the things, my advice on managing during this worldwide global pause, etc., etc. So let's get started. Oh, am I going to be able to, this is a little bit of a different tripod. Let's see. Hold on, guys. Got to make sure. Oop, will that stand up? Sorry about that. I didn't think my tripod situation through. Hold on. Okay, so you guys just won't be able to see things. How do I want to do this? Hold on, I'm sorry. Here we go. Let me see. Am I going to be able to write that way? Okay, so it'll just be a little bit slanted. You guys just won't be able to see the whole thing at the same time. But you will be able to see it. Okay, so this is the Quickstart Budget, and this is all about telling your money what to do. And this is specifically telling it what to do as it relates to your necessities, which is going to be really, really important during this time, to really be honest about what is a necessity and what is not, what's truly a need and what is not, and managing for that. So my income is going to be $5,000 this month, and you guys know that I pay 10% towards my tithes. I'm going to maintain that, so that'll be $500, and then I do 10% towards child support, and I am going to maintain that as well. Thank you. Someone said they love my nails. Thank you. This is called Tiramisu for Two. It is OPI. My rent is $937. My apartment complex has given an option for people to create payment plans, adjustments, and stuff like that for rent. I am not opting to take advantage of that opportunity because I understand that my rent pays the salaries for the people who are running my apartment complex, and I don't actually have a need at this time. So because I don't have a need, I'm not going to take advantage of an opportunity to delay paying this or putting this on a payment plan, because I understand as a business owner that impacts the revenue their company has, and then ultimately what they're able to pay their people. So I'm going to pay my rent on time. But that has been something that my apartment complex has offered. My renter's insurance is $575. And also, I'm going to have another $60 fee that I'm going to need to pay because I locked myself out not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. And they're only charging me 1 time, but I definitely locked myself out 4 times last month. Not really for sure. And this is 4 times before Chicago was put on a home order, a stay-at-home order. So I don't even know like what was going on there, but I will add that in there, and that will bring my total to $1,002.75. My electricity is 25. My gas is 25. My phone and my internet come out of my business expenses now. So that brings that expense to 50. So for groceries, you guys know that I increased my grocery budget already to 250. That is going to be the same. I am not actually quarantined at my home. I was somewhere else before the quarantine started for a completely reason unrelated to the quarantine. Then we got quarantined and I decided to stay there. But because I was not prepared to stay there, I didn't have everything that I needed. And so I chose to come home today to get all of the things that I would need so that way I can truly stay in one place for a 30-day period of time. So the groceries that I would normally buy for myself, I probably won't buy those specific groceries, but I'm still going to use that same budget of $250. I am also going to send $250 worth of grocery to my son's dad's house, or to my son's house. So that brings my grocery budget to $500. Again, that is intentional. My son already eats a horse when he also eats at school, but now that he is at home every single day, sun up to sundown, he is eating 2.5 to 3 horses, and this will help with, the food and stuff like that. Clothing is not a priority for me or my son at this time, so that is crossed off. Transportation. So now, normally for transportation, I do Uber. I am choosing not to do Uber at this time because that is not safe for me. So I think our stay-at-home order is until May 1st. So I don't anticipate needing a transportation budget because I am going to stay at home. So for that reason, I won't put any transportation here, which brings this to 0, and this one is to 0. Life insurance is $26.75. Is that what my life insurance is? $26.25. $26.25, and then my health coverage is $150, and I don't have any of these other expenses. So $176.25. So then to figure out what my cost for my needs or my essentials for the month of April would be, I would just add up all of these numbers. So $500 for tithes, $500 for child support, $1,002.75 for my housing, $50 for my utilities, $500 for my groceries, and then $176.25 for my insurances. And 25 cents, not 75 cents. So my total cost for needs for the month of April is $2,729.00. So I'm just going to add that up one more time just to make sure my numbers are correct. Yes. So this is the total cost for my needs in the month of April, right around $3,000. I like doing this budget because this lets me know bare minimum my 4 walls are covered. Bare minimum, if I just take care of my insurances, my food, my housing, my utilities, I am good to go. So if I were to think about reducing my my income for May, or for June or something like that. I already have an idea of what would be a really good number for me because I know that my basic necessities do not exceed $3,000. So maybe depending on how things happen, if I wanted to adjust my income again, I would go to $3,000 a month versus the $5,000 a month. And I would be fully aware that my needs would be covered. And at this time, for me, because of the worldwide global pause, I am very happy to simply honor my needs. My wants, I would love to be able to do it, but if I couldn't, I would focus on my needs, and these would be my needs being covered successfully. So that is the quick start budget. That's why this budget form is important, because you need to know the difference between your needs and your wants and how much is actually spent when you're doing that. So I'm going to move this, and then I'm going to go to the cash flow plan. The cash flow plan is telling your money where to go. So oftentimes what happens is that people will have, they will know what they need. They'll be like, oh, you know, my rent is paid, my car, all, food, whatever, but I just don't know where my money is going. That is what this form is for, because all the other money that's left over is money that people, especially during times like this, spend emotionally. So after I take the $2,729 away from the $5,000 income that I'm gonna have, I still have $2,271 left over. The average person during a time like this would just blow that because of how emotionally charged everyone is right now. I do not want to do that, which is the reason why I love doing the monthly cash flow, because I want to know exactly where my money is going. The other form tells me what I need to pay in order to cover my necessities. This tells me where the rest of my money is going. So I'm just going to quickly fill in the ones that I had on the other form. So $500 for tithes, $500 for child support, comes to $1,000. My emergency fund at this time is still currently fully funded at $1,000. So I feel really great about that. My rent is $937. Then I have that $60 lockout fee, which this number is going to look a little different because insurance is all moved to one category when you move it over to this form. So I just wanted to point that out. My utility of $25, gas of $25, goes $50, and then my groceries of $500. I did a really good job on my laundry intentionally, so I think I will be fine, and I'm not going to add any laundry expense for the month of April. Again, I'm not going to do any transportation expense, and then I don't have any medical expenses for the month of April. I'm just going to put that to the side, and then this is the next form. I'm going to fill in I know I'm not going to do any additional entertainment things, but I'm going to fill in my life insurance at $26.25, health coverage at $150, and renter's insurance $182. Okay, so now what I'm going to do before I fill in the other is I'm just going to take, I forgot to do this. The other thing that you want to do is always start with your income. I apologize. I'm going to take $5,000 away from what I know my needs are to figure out how much disposable income I have. Okay, so I have $2,271 in disposable income. I still have a priority to keep my debt snowball rolling, so I want to pay my minimum on my student loans, and my undergrad student loan minimum is $715.43. $715.43. And my minimum on my graduate student loan is $939. $939.67. Now, Do I want to not send this? Absolutely. Do I want to call them and say, hey, I need a pass? Yes, I do, because I want to keep the 2,200 and change disposable income in my pocket. I want to do that. I am not going to do that because I am on a journey to become 100% debt free. And as I mentioned before, while this worldwide global pause is a thing, it is not having a significant impact on my revenue. And I am not going to begin to act out of fear or act out of scarcity or anything like that. I am going to manage my money. And managing it means bringing it down to my minimum payments, even though these are like ouchie amounts, but continuing to pay my minimum payments. Do I want to? Absolutely not. Am I going to? Yes, because I'm still on this journey. So that brings it to, okay. All right, so what I have left over after that is $616. So now I'm going to come over to my wants. Now, the reason I subtracted my debts before I subtracted my wants or personal is because my priority, even in the middle of this worldwide global pause, is still to become 100% debt free. And that is represented by me subtracting that amount first versus thinking through my wants. So I have $616 left over for my wants. You guys know that my primary priority is therapy. I'm continuing to go to therapy. I'll still continue to do it twice a month. I'm not experiencing any higher levels of anxiety, depression, PTSD symptoms or anything like that. And I do believe that's because for the most part, my lifestyle has not changed dramatically because I am an entrepreneur. So I have not experienced a lot of turbulence in my life. And so I'm going to just maintain my twice. And then the next thing that I want to prioritize is my son's physical therapy. He's still going to physical therapy for his injury, which is awesome. I don't know if they're going to shift that because of, you know, things that are going on, or if like the physical therapist is going to come to his house. I'm not 100% for sure, but I do know the total cost for that is $280 a month. These are my top 2 want priorities. Beyond that, I do have my gym membership and I do have my personal training, but because of the stay-at-home order, the gyms are closed and they are not charging us for those costs. So that's nice that I don't have to pay that. Normally it would be $50 and $49.99. So essentially there's $100 that would normally go out that's not going to go out. And then personal hygiene is all stacked because I got that in the month of February. I'm not interested in any additional pocket money. I'll just sort of let the money that I set aside for our emotional, mental, physical health and well-being take care of that. And I don't have any other miscellaneous things. This is April. There are not any birthdays or anything like that in April. I'm just trying to think through other sort of expenses that could come up, and I can't think of anything. So the 1616 minus the 140 for therapy for me and the 280 for physical therapy for my son leaves a remaining budget of 196. That 196 is going to be what I am allocating for the global pause. And that just is essentially during this global pause up and until the amount of $196. If my son needs something, if I need something, say I need an extra therapy session, again, say he wants to download a different game, something to that effect. From my understanding, restaurants are still open. Normally in a month, I would not give my son restaurant food, especially since we're doing groceries, but I do understand the monotony of being at home as an only child, Monday through Sunday, sun up to sundown. So if he wants to order a pizza or something like that and just eat it while he's on FaceTime with his friends, I don't know. I don't know what's going to come up. But what I'm saying is up into $196, I'm not going to be micromanaging what comes up for my son. And the only reason why I keep mentioning food, by and large, me and my family are very healthy with food, but I keep mentioning food because it's almost like there's not really too many other things. Like he can't go anywhere. So yeah, so up into $196, that will be able to manage for that. Now, let's say we don't spend this $196. What I'm going to do is put that in the beginnings of a sinking fund. And so then this 196 will just be in the global pause sinking fund, and it'll carry over into next month. And next month I will do the same thing. What am I going to set aside for the global pause? And then I will, put that in there as well. So let me add up these expenses. 616. So now, to make it a zero-based budget, you just take 5,000 and you add up all the other categories. So 500 for tithes, 500 for child support, $937 for rent, $60 for my lockout fee, $25 for my utility, my electricity, and then $25 for my gas, $500 for groceries, $182 for insurances, $616 for wants, and then $1655.10 for debt. Oh, I'm over 10 cents, so maybe that was not supposed to be there. Hold on. 715.43 plus 939.67 equals, yes, 1655.10. So then maybe that's 95 then. Okay, hold on, let me see. 1655.10 plus 615. No, that takes a whole dollar away, Stacey. Where's this 90 cents at? I guess I would put it there. If I put it there? Oh, yes, sorry. Thanks. She said if we could see your calculator, maybe we could help you find the mistake. Thank you. Forgot about that. Okay, so I'm just adding up the numbers. So $500 for tithes, $500 for child support, $937 for rent, $60 for my lockout fee, $25 for electricity, $25 for electricity, $500 for groceries, $182 for insurances, and $140 for therapy, $280 for physical therapy, $196 for the global pause, then $715.43 for undergrad loans, then $939.67 for graduate loans. So I'm 10 cents over. I mean, what do I just do? 95.90 here? Just make that 95.90 instead of 96? That would fix it, right? Oh, I can't see. Okay, so yeah, so this will be 95. Okay. We'll just take it to 95.90. So let me just do my math again. Yeah, okay. So then that equals 5,000, which brings me to 0. And that's what you want. You want it to be 0, because 0 means that you have decided beforehand exactly where you want your money to go, which means there will be little to zero emotional spending up and until just this generosity, this $195.90. I can emotionally spend up to $195 if I want to, because I've allocated and said this is what I can do. So many people are like, what do I do with the stimulus package that I'm going to get back? How do I budget? You sit down and you tell that money where to go. If you're gonna get, I think it's what, $1,200 adult and then $500 a kiddo, you sit down and you say, what do I want to do? And if you're going to do some emotional spending, you put it on there. And I'm calling it global pause rather than emotional spending, but I'm telling myself ahead of time, you have $195.90 in this budget to essentially do whatever you want to do with it. But when I come back, I'm not going to be looking up a month from now, a week from now, and saying, where's my money? I know where my money is. I know exactly what my money is doing. I know I have $195.90 to just go wherever I want it to go. I know that my minimum payments on my student loans are taken care of. I know that I have money for groceries and money for my son's grocery. I know exactly where my money is going. It's so important during this time to say, before you get the money, and I think a lot of people already have gotten the money, but maybe before you spend the money, to say, what do I want to do with this extra $1,000? What do I want to do with this extra $500? I have made a conscious effort to put more food in my son's house because I know he's eating more, because he's not getting his meal at school and his after school stuff. Like, he's not getting any of that stuff. So I just know that more food needs to be in the home, right? I've made a decision ahead of time to emotionally spend up to $195. That is the power of a budget. You can just decide ahead of time that it is okay, that this is what you're gonna do with your money. So now we go to the final form, and this is where the rubber meets the road. It's not gonna meet too much road this time because of the way that I'm doing it, but this is where you tell your money when to go, where it's going to go. So for example, if you get a check, I don't know when the stimulus money was supposed to come out, but let's just say between the 1st and the 15th. If you get that extra $1,000, $1,200, however much the money is, you would write that on here and then decide what it's going to pay. Normally, I pay myself on the 1st and the 15th. I'm not doing that this time because I want to reduce my financial decision making this month because I don't know what's going to happen in the remainder of the month, right? Like last month, it was great. I was fine. It was wonderful. There weren't big adjustments. I'm happy to be where I'm current, like everything was great. I don't know what's going to happen this month, but I do know that emotional spending is a real thing. And because I have the power to be able to pay myself once or twice, I'm just going to go ahead and pay myself once and take everything out all at once. So everything, once we get off this call, or after I do my Q&A, I will essentially send all of the money that I can send to the places that I can send it, and the only remaining money that will be dangling in my checking account is money that will be withdrawn as it's being used. So for example, therapy won't come out until I have therapy today. So normally this is where the rubber meets the road. This time it's just gonna look like I'm just writing things down that I just wrote down, but it's really good to still look at the form, use the form, practice it. It's always easier to do it when things are simple than when things are complicated. So I'm going to complete this because I want the habit of completing this form to override me making mistakes, but also I want the habit of completing this form to give me the peace and the confidence and the certainty in this very uncertain time. So I budgeted $500. My remaining would be $4,500. For child support, $500. My remaining would be $4,000. $937. And I think the other thing that this does is it gives you a psychological way of seeing how your money, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this where like your checking account, you look at it every day and it just keeps going down and down and down and you're like, man, what is coming out? This gives me the psychological, like I know how much is gonna be left once my tithes and child support and rent come out. Once my lockout fee comes out, I know how my checking account is going to look and respond. So that is psychologically soothing for me to see the numbers worked out on paper versus for the first time seeing the numbers work out as my checking account balance is going down. And I keep mentioning doing things for myself psychologically because for most of us, that is what we are battling, the psychology of this worldwide global pause. Some of us, yes, are being impacted because we know a friend or a family member or someone, but most of us, it is a psychological thing that is happening to us. And it is very hard to combat things that are happening to us psychologically because they show up very differently than things that are happening in physical. So to psychologically see what's going to happen in my checking account before it happens feels amazing. As far as groceries, so how I'm going to do that is I'm going to withdraw the $250 for my grocery budget so that way I can have that money in my space, and then I'm going to do delivery for my son's groceries. But all that will happen today. Nothing here. I think that's just the thing that I like about this form also, is that it does show you like the amount decreasing versus it being added. Again, not as sexy this month, but who knows? Maybe next month it'll be a little sexier. Oh, I didn't mean to delete that. But because I have it here, we should be fine. My son, Omaha, is not on a stay-at-home order, which is the reason why I anticipate he will still be going to physical therapy, because he's not on a stay-at-home order. But his father and I have some very clear guidelines for what he is able to do and not able to do. So even though it's like self-quarantine is what we're doing at this point for him. Because it's like at a recommended level versus here in Chicago, it's like ordered by the governor. Oh, nope, that's supposed to be $95.90. I was almost about to miss that 90 cents. And 10 cents doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot. If you can't manage 10 cents, you won't manage $1 well. If you can't manage $1 well, you won't manage $10 well. Can't manage $10 well, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, so on and so forth. So every cent counts. I like to treat all of my dollars with respect. All right, she looks pretty. So this one was fairly straightforward because I'm literally paying everything today. But still wanted to go through the form for practice because it is important for us to develop habits that are going to set us up for the success that we want. So I've told my money when to go, where it's going to go. So essentially, on April 2nd, everyone will be paid. I know where my money is going because of my cash flow plan. And I also know what needs to be taken care of via the idea of my necessities because of my Quickstart budget. That is my budget for the month of April. I am going to go out of this video and start a new video where I will stay on and answer all of your questions. So I'll talk to you in just a little bit.